And then I asked them, I said, assuming you have 40 hours in a week, how many minutes per week are you spending on recruiting? And so they all gave an answer, wrote down an answer, and then we tallied up the number of minutes, divided it into the number of hours. And what we found was we were spending less than 1% of our time recruiting. And so my statement was, guys, this is the definition of madness. If we are spending less than 1% of our time on the biggest obstacle to success this year, what should we change?
Welcome to the $100 Million Mindset, the source for business owners who aspire to scale, grow, and reach their full potential. Whether you're aiming for 5 million, 10 million, or 100 million. Your hosts are Alan O'Neill, the Irish plumber, who scaled Abacus Plumbing and Cooling to over 100 million, and thunderstruck Todd Liles, a coach to high-performing business leaders and the owner of Service Excellence, are going to help you think bigger, act smarter, and take your business to the next level.
Alan, welcome back again.
Thank you, Todd.
You know, it's funny, between the time that we did this one and the last one, somehow we magically wore the same T-shirts.
That is amazing.
It happens sometimes. All right, so guest, this is going to be one of those episodes to where you ask a question and we answer it. And what I did was I asked the question, if you were sitting across the table from a very humble and very talented plumber that grew his business to $150 million, what would you ask him? And there were so many great questions that came in. And this one is on the subject of talent, leadership, and delegation. So the first question comes from Tom Duncan, Alan. And Tom asked, what was your strategy for scouting for talent? And how did you keep people believing in the process?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I will go back to a meeting I had when I was managing the state of Texas for Wrench Group. I had two companies in Dallas and one in Houston. And we got the managers together. I think we had 9 or 10 people in the room. And I asked them all what was the biggest obstacle to hitting the numbers that year. And everyone wrote down a version of hiring, like finding talent, finding guys, recruiting, whatever it might be. But 10 out of 10 said recruiting. And then I asked them, I said, assuming you have 40 hours in a week, how many minutes per week are you spending on recruiting? And so they all gave an answer, wrote down an answer. And then we tallied up the number of minutes, divided it into the number of hours. And what we found was we were spending less than 1% of our time recruiting. And so my statement was, guys, this is the definition of madness. If we are spending less than 1% of our time on the biggest obstacle to success this year, what should we change? And we agreed that everyone would spend a minimum of, I think it was an hour per day recruiting, but it's several years ago now. I believe in order to be successful at recruiting, you have to put the appropriate amount of time in it. Now, if you don't have an on-site recruiter, you have to either do it yourself or delegate it, but someone has to be in charge of recruiting, and recruiting is not a part-time thing. It has to be all the time. If you're an owner and you're looking for a great customer service rep and you're in a restaurant and you get great service from a server, don't be afraid to talk to that server about joining your company potentially as a customer service rep, whatever it might be. But activity leads to results. Now, today and for the last 10 years or so, we've had an on-site recruiter. She's in the building. She's recruiting full-time. And our statement to her is, listen, you have to think about recruiting like farming. You're sowing seeds. You're talking to technicians that are currently working for other employers. And all we want to be top of the mind if they decide to leave that company. We want to be their first choice. So I believe recruiting is a lot like farming. You've got to sow the seeds today to reap the rewards of the crop tomorrow. So it's an activity-based thing.
You know, Alan, I agree with you. And this is the thing that small companies it's really the thing they struggle with the most. It's like if you're small by definition, you probably are lacking of resources.
Yep.
And let's take a company that's doing, $2 million. If they're not overstaffed, inside of these staffing positions, right, they've probably got an owner that's acting as a high-level operator, general manager, service manager, operations manager, could be doing all. They might have a service manager. So it might be the owner, one person supporting them in the field. There is at least 2 people in the office doing some sort of combination of CSR, dispatching, paperwork,
Correct.
all the things, right? So it's probably 4 people in the office, maybe 5. But then if you go to the subject of recruiting, they might think to themselves, the only people here that should be doing recruiting is the owner and the service manager. And I'd say that they definitely should. But then if you ask them that same question, they would still say less than 1%, but then they would give you a myriad of real reasons why they can't, in their mind, real reasons, right?
Right.
But it's no different than marketing. If you're small and you're going, well, I can't compete with everybody, so what I'm going to do is try to do it digitally. I've been in some really deep conversations with some people that are really, really, really smart digital advertisers and what have you. And a lot of these guys have gotten to the attitude that if you're not doing like 10 million and have the money to invest, you're not even worth their time.
Yeah.
Think about that. A 10 million, if you're not doing 10 million, and not even shouldn't say it's not worth your time, what it really is that you cannot win it at Google. You cannot win at pay-per-click if you're under 10 million. And like, well, if you're 5, they can kind of make a go out of it, but they fundamentally know that the big guys are going to beat you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's because, costs have gone from $97 to $400 sometimes.
Yeah.
But so I'm taking this back to recruiting, right? All of these guys think to themselves, I don't have the time, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend money. And what they don't realize is that when you're under 3 million, there are very few things that you have enough money to spend on that actually is going to hire people that are good at doing it.
Right.
You will hire people that are really crappy at doing it, and they're really cheap, but they're affordable to you. I frankly believe that under 2 or 3 million, you will always be your best recruiter.
100%. Todd. Yeah.
This might also be hard to bite off, but you will probably also be your best marketer. And it isn't through marketing. It's by delivering an overwhelming service that it just cannot be denied.
Yeah.
Which means you better be your best recruiter. Like, who do you put into those companies? What plumber are you hiring? What electrician are you hiring? What air conditioning technician are you hiring? Are they of the highest caliber or standard? And if you haven't been investing a significant amount of time, the answer is no. And it all boils down to resources, right? And when you don't have people and you don't have money, even if you feel like you don't have a lot of time, literally that's the only resource you have is time.
Right.
And you better use it. Take that 10 to 12%, make those phone calls while you're driving, set aside an hour a day, have your list of people and talk to them. Now, what happens, and they discredit it because it's the hard stuff, is all of that compounds.
Absolutely, Todd. Yeah.
And it makes an impact. And then eventually, like, you're big enough to do the other things. But if you don't do those things, you get stuck. And I'm glad that you answered that, because I don't know what size Tom is. I have no idea. But what I know is 85% of the marketplace is still under 5 million. And that's just by not revenue perhaps, but it is by the number of companies that are out there.
Right.
And they are competing with businesses that have resources. So the vast majority of the people that we're talking to, when Alan says 10 to 12% of your time, you better be doing it.
You better be. I like to say, if the building was on fire, would you put it out tomorrow? No. You put it out immediately. You have to be recruiting all the time. I think not having a plumber, an air conditioning tech, or an electrician to put into a vehicle to service your customers when it's needed is equivalent to the building being on fire.
Yes.
So you better get out and get after it. And like, even if that's only you pull into Home Depot and there's a plumbing truck there, wait for the guy to show up with the plumbing truck and have a conversation with him. Like, you're not trying to recruit him away from his current employer, but at least let him know what your company is about if he ever needs a job. Like, let's get out there and do that.
I agree. Under this concept of talent, leadership, and delegation, I want to ask one other question. It's from Julian Waters, and this is the question. I think it's interesting, right? And Julian said, "You better give me an answer." So
it might not be a good answer, but we'll give you an answer.
Yeah, I'm gonna read it because it's kind of long here. Delegation is key. However, not everyone wants it as bad as I do. A $700 average invoice is completely different ballpark than a $1,600 average invoice. I want it. So I'm upselling and I'm going ballistics with PRs, PMs, etc. because, again, I want my company to succeed. However, how do you find the 5 techs that'll carry your intensity and passion into the field? So then the question from Julian is, how did you consistently do that where you were having techs hitting their ROIs like all the way up to 150 million? And Julian says, either you're amazing at systems or you must have a wizard sitting in recruiting. And you've already tackled a little bit of this, but let's just double click on it. Let's express to Julian the real answer of motivation versus hiring. Like, it's a batteries installed, or are you putting the batteries into them, right?
You know, it's interesting, Todd. So the answer is you've got to, let's go back to recruiting for a minute. So you've got to do a great job when you're selecting people to find out what motivates them, right? What is it this person really wants out of a job? And are they the right fit for your company? Because I think over the years when we got ourselves in trouble, it was generally because we were hiring too fast and not hiring the right people that had the motivation and were willing to invest in themselves in order to be successful. But the other thing is, maybe you hire this guy and he's not a wizard. Are you training him? Are you putting the effort into training the technicians, and are they receptive to the training? These are all the things you have to be watching to produce a technician that's going to have a $1,700 average ticket. Listen, I'm okay if someone comes in and they have a $300 average ticket to start with, as long as they're improving and they're accepting the training, they're investing their time and they're interested in the training and they're willing to put the training to use when they get out in the field. If we have an interview with a technician and he says, listen, you don't need to train me, I'm a rock star, our answer is you can go and be a rock star somewhere else, because we need you to do it our way. We need you to take our training, and you've got to constantly be training them. But as long as there's consistent improvement, I believe you can get him to that average ticket you want to get him to.
Now, I don't know what size this company is, but I'm assuming when they talk about 5 technicians, 750 on the low end, they're probably like 2.6.
Right.
Maybe 1 or 2 people are doing the 15 million, so maybe they're $4 million perhaps. But I also think it goes back to that time thing and like, what's your level of commitment? And I'm going to give you an example of this, right? We've got a couple different programs for people at any different size that'll work. For folks that are really small, smaller than this person, inside of that growth group, there's all of these resources that are log in, get it, and move on. And it's absolutely pointless and a waste of a person's money if they never log in, they never get it, and then they never put it in play. It's just keep your money. What are you doing? Even if you step up into our larger groups like what you were doing, where we will come in and we'll train your technicians once a week. A lot of times, like what an outside company does is they're giving information, they're laying foundation, they're giving a standard, but it still has to be picked up internally. You need a service manager that, whether it's through daily huddles or through additional training,
Absolutely.
Especially as you are going, okay, I really want to do this well, right? You need an onboarding process that's 60 to 90 days. And when you are going to companies like ours at Service Excellence, what we are doing is we're providing you with a system that will work, but we're not implementing it. I mean, I guess we could, but who wants to have us come in for 90 days and come by, every single day of the week? It would be ridiculous. You need to do that. And I think there's a mindset with companies that is incorrect, especially when they're smaller, which is either I'm never going to train, because I don't know how, or it's a waste of time, or I've trained before and it doesn't work, or I'm going to hire a company like Service Excellence and they will train once a week. And by God, if once a week training doesn't work, they must be the reason why. It must suck. And they never stop and ask themselves culturally, what are you doing culturally? Because training is not an event. It's a system.
Absolutely.
It's not a one-time thing. It's a system. And we provide the resources for the system, but you've got to operate the system in-house. So what we find is that our best relationships are with people like James and Michael and Goran and Jesse Olson and all of these wonderful folks, people like Shane, where we give them the system, we give the how to do it, we give the example, and then 4 days a week it's being reinforced. Yeah. Those companies grow like gangbusters. Those companies are happy. The ones that don't, it's like everything else. You know, oh, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. I joined Airtime. It didn't work. I joined Nexstar. It didn't work. I joined Praxis. It didn't work. I joined Service Excellence. It didn't work. I tried what Alan said. It didn't work. Yeah, you did it 1% of the time, one time.
Just imagine, like, just a funny analogy here, Todd. Imagine going to Weight Watchers and getting on the scale and then leaving there and eating donuts for a week, right? You're probably not going to lose any weight when you go back to weigh in the next week.
No.
You've got to do the training, and then someone has to inspect what you expect. You've got to follow up and do it, because failure to implement, I've said this before, it's the biggest disease in small building in small companies in America. They like, you might remember from your SGI days, Todd, we'd have a seminar and only about 20% of the people would implement what they learned at the seminar. So it's like, you can invest in training, but if you're not willing to enforce it daily, it's not going to work.
That's right.
You've got to do the work.
Here's the good news, though. If people are listening to this, it's because they want to do the work.
Absolutely. I agree.
And that means we've given them an answer. Now, if they're wanting to do it and they're ready to do the work, that's awesome. By the way, Alan, I think I'm officially going to say that you and I are going to create the recruiting and training class.
Let's go for it, Todd.
Why not?
Let's do it. Why not?
Half of the questions in here about it. So when we're going to do it, we don't know, but we're going to do it one day.
Well, you know, Todd, I talk to contractors all the time, and it's always the subject always comes up. I can't find good people. I can't do this. They're out there. You have to be constantly looking in order to find them.
I'll tell you what. I'm gonna set a really, 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 really simple goal. Very simple goal here. 10 people send in and say that they want to do the class. We're going to set the date and we're going to do it. That's it.
Let's do it.
Because if we get 10 people to say that they want to do it, then another 40 will follow.
Right.
All right. I think that's it for this episode, Alan.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Todd.
All right, listeners, thank you so much. Watchers, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. It's really just about getting to work and getting it done. You can do this. We believe in you. We really, really do, because we've seen guys and gals just like you win in big ways. So go out there and do it. And if you hang on to one thing here today, remember, recruiting, training, it is not an event. It's not something you do one time. It's a system that you do daily.
Hey, thanks so much for watching the show this week. Head over to toddliles.com/mindset to get the show notes. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you never miss a new episode of the show. And if you enjoyed this episode, then share it. It really helps us get the word out. You've been watching the $100 Million Mindset with Alan O'Neill and Thunderstruck Todd Liles.